Yo, what's up guys, and welcome back to a new video. Today I'm gonna be talking about the top 8 tips and tricks to improve your Mythic Plus gameplay, whether it is if you're just starting out or you're trying to push your limits. These tips and tricks will help you take your Mythic Plus gameplay to the next level. Alright, let's get into it with tip number 1. Know your class. The first and most important tip is to know your class inside and out. That means understanding all your abilities, your rotation, and how to use them properly in a group. You can find a lot of this information on your class, and some good examples of this would be on Wowhead, YouTube guides, or you can just go into a stream of a high level player and ask them some questions. There's no shame in learning more about your class and how to min-max your damage, and it will actually make you a better player in the long run. A lot of these high level players are actually very helpful, and they're more than happy to answer your questions on how you can become a better Mythic Plus player. Tip number 2. Be aware of your surroundings. One of the biggest mistakes that new Mythic Plus players make is that they're not fully aware of the things going on around them. And nowadays we do have to deal with a lot of mechanics that requires us to dodge, to interrupt, or even have to stun or fear a mob. And if you're not aware of these mechanics, that can actually cause some very awkward situations. Maybe you will take a lot of damage. Maybe the entire group takes damage. And in some extreme scenarios, it could even cause a wipe. So always make sure that you know what mechanics are coming up next and be ready to react to them when you have to. But luckily for you, there are a lot of helpful add-ons and weak auras around nowadays that will help you notice these mechanics. And I will leave a link to my Discord down below so that you have access to all my add-ons and weak auras to make it a lot easier for you. And hopefully that will also relieve some pressure of you of having to notice all these mechanics at once. So for tip number 3, and this is gonna be a bit of a cheesy one, but subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot, and you will always be notified when I make a new video on how to help you become a better player yourself. Alright, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's dive into tip number 4. Plan your cooldowns. Nowadays you have access to a lot of tools to pre-plan your cooldowns. Use Raider.io efficiently. A lot of the high level players have their routes openly available on Raider.io, so you can dive into what the best players are doing, what kind of pulls they do, and even people at your level what kind of pulls they do. This makes it so that you can already know where you can use your cooldowns the most efficient way before you even step foot into the game. So make sure that you take your time outside of the game, plan your cooldowns, plan your defensives, and it will improve your DPS over the course of the dungeon massively. So let's jump into tip number 5, and this might just be the most important one. Have fun. Mythic Plus can be rough at times, and we all know that feeling of depleting a key due to a mistake or just being overtimed by a few seconds. And yes, that can be very discouraging, but try to have fun in your journey. Find some players in either your guild, community, or just maybe some friends that you've met along the way to play with. Playing with pre-mates has helped me out a lot to stay motivated, and it also makes the experience a lot easier being able to communicate with someone. You can have fun and learn together, and maybe slowly push up the rankings and become Mythic Plus pros together. Alright, it's time for tip number 6. Use add-ons and weak auras. I cannot stress enough how much of an impact it makes if you use the proper weak auras and add-ons. Like I said before, I will leave a link down below in the description so you can download or copy some of my add-ons and weak auras, and you should also explore a little bit yourself. I will leave a link to the website where I get my weak auras from, so you can explore a little bit yourself. Look what your class has to offer in terms of weak auras. Look at what add-ons are made for your class, or just look at what dungeon or raid add-ons there are. This can help you out tremendously just by knowing where to use a defensive, where you have to dispel, or where you have to do something that you might not be aware of at the time. So look down in the description below and check them out. Let's move on to tip number 7. And tip number 7 might be a little bit of an advanced one. Simulate your character. Now you might be wondering, what do I mean with simulate your character? There is this website called raidbots.io. I will leave a link to this website down below in the description so you guys can follow along. And this website allows you to simulate multiple stages of the game. You can simulate single target damage, you can simulate cleave damage or AoE damage. And you can also simulate multiple pieces of gear against each other. So you can see what gear fits the best and which will give you the most DPS. Besides that, you can also check for which enchants would fit you the best, which gems would fit you the best, and what type of food you should use. If you combine all of these things, a lot of players can already gain a massive amount of DPS. So I suggest you check it out as well and see how much DPS you can gain by swapping a few pieces of gear around. Alright, so for our final tip of the day, do not release. And this sounds weird, right? Because you always have the instinct to instantly hit that release button and get to your party back as soon as possible. However, this is not always the correct play to make. You might have skipped some mobs, you might have used a shroud, or you're just generally very far away from where the group currently is. In a lot of instances, it's actually better to wait dead on the floor for someone to start and resurrect you than it is for you to walk the entire way back. Sometimes it is even more efficient for you to get combat rest if the combat sticks for a long time and the path is too long. So make sure to think about these things when you press the release button. Are you close to the group and how long is it gonna take me to get back to the group? So now that we've covered all of these 8 tips and tricks, I hope that they will help you become a better Mythic Plus player. And I'm curious to hear your feedback, your questions or your opinions in the comments down below. If you haven't already, consider subscribing, consider liking. Thank you all for watching and I hope to catch you in the next one.